just feel like it's just wasted potential.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
Because like how useful are especially Hispanic kids that know English and Spanish when a lot of these subs don't know English very well.
Yeah.
Where they could, be their accountant, right? Make their invoices, right? Just something that's like that's a huge of much more help to the contractor, and it's like it's so much better than being out in the sun. Because I mean, man, I've done it, you've done it. That shit isn't like nice, man. Like being out there in 96-degree weather and shit, like when it's freezing cold, like man, the weather is harsh. Like like man, I wouldn't.
And I still get to do it every now and then, so it's not my preference, but like
I guess. But it's not like we're forced to. You know what I'm saying? Like there's days that we got to pick up a hammer. We know how to do it, right? It's like, but I think you would choose all day, every day option, any other option, right? And also at the same time getting paid more,
right,
Then like sometimes the people slinging the hammer not always
getting paid as much.
Get paid as much. It's usually the guy who's running it, the subcontractor, the general contractor, right? Making big bucks, and the man don't even step outside, don't even show up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So,
but I mean, even now, like everything has changed, bro. Like I mean, back to when we were like back in the day, like back in middle school, like. To now, like just the money, the economy, like everything's different. Like people in construction, like they make some of them make pretty good money. Now the whole, they can start off their own thing on the side. Like people doing side jobs. Back then it was like harder. It was
like super hard.
Yeah.
And it's like they were getting paid a little bit. And I hear a lot of subcontractors, they joke about it, but I also know they're a little mad. They're like, they say, no starting worker wants to get paid $10 an hour.
No.
Like they want 15, 20, not knowing nothing now. Yeah. And it's like that's just the world we live in right now, right? It's like
it is.
Shit's so expensive.
Yeah.
That it's like he's like, man, now everybody thinks they're $20, $25, and then now the maestros that used to get paid that, now you got to pay him 35, 40. So it's it's even harder being a contractor, or because your overhead's huge, and it's just like the workers don't really have fault in it because. It's just like you can't pay them the same wage as like these like restaurant jobs, that are getting paid $15 an hour, like McDonald's, because or Target, where minimum wage is going. They're paying more than minimum wage because nobody wants to take those jobs. Yeah, well, there's no. Like those workers, they would much rather be flipping burgers, bro, for $15 an hour than laying concrete for $15 an hour, doing hardscape. So it only makes sense that price has to go up, or otherwise, we lose all of our workforce.
All the workforce,
So I guess you could say the government is to blame for a lot of this stuff. And then that reflects on the houses of homes, right? Yeah. Because if it's more expensive on us, on every single subcontractor, then all you do is pass the bill on at the end, and who gets the bill at the end? The new client, the new homeowner, right? The buyer. It's like, and it's not fair. But I was like, it's not us. Like blame the government. Like blame the economy, right?
Part Inflation, of it too is also like just Nashville booming.
Right. Oh yeah, it's been booming
for more demand. Supply and demand. So it's like your prices kind of gone.
And I think that's a blessing because Nashville's been booming since we finished our careers, and even prior to that, to where it's like we finished school and we weren't worrying about getting jobs or not having work. Like we're in a field that's like booming. Like until recently, it's caught up to date. Like right now, because back then it's like people were always working 1 to 2 months and maybe even 3 months behind. Like if I wanted to get somebody out there, I had to schedule them 2 months ahead of time. Right. That's how much work there was even in that COVID era.
COVID.
Yeah, COVID. Like COVID. Everything shut down, but we were called the essential. Yeah. And we were blown up. Like
I was working 7 days.
It was a blessing. We didn't really go through that. But interest rates were super cheap, and I feel like that was the only thing that was keeping like the economy afloat because thankfully a lot of us had been making money, and so they had that money saved up. So a lot of the people, when everything shut down, they started doing all their DIYs. And they started doing their like little remodels, additions, everything, because they were like, well, if we're not doing anything, might as well. So people still had so much money here for a fact that I know that they were able to remodel their houses, like, do anything they wanted. It's just how cheap I think Nashville was. Right. I think that's what sort of smacked Nashville people or like Tennessee people now, that like in a small amount of time, things sort of like accelerated. And now it feels like, we don't make enough money to live here, but I feel like it was too much of a time where people were like living their best life and they had too much money at the end, and it just didn't reflect with like the real world, like other states, right? Like bordering higher paying tax states, because we have a cheaper tax
people were
bracket.
getting like there's a lot of incentives too. Like the government was giving out money left and right. You know?
PPP
like,
loans, right? I mean, I didn't use that, right?
Like
I was but you know, apparently PPP loans were getting handed out left and right. You know, there was a few like checks that they gave out, scams and people not having to pay rent at all, right? They were working, but their excuse was, since I don't have to pay rent, then I won't pay it. And so the landlords were taking hits for like 2-3 years, like they couldn't evict anybody out. So people literally went like 2-3 years without paying rent until that restriction emergency thing fell off, and it was almost like a tsunami. Like the next day, every landlord was. I bet you that town hall or the the offices were packed with like landlords, evictions ready to go. Like probably have to get extra cops or just assign half the fleet just to go evicting. I know about it because from my employer, they also rent properties out. That's all I heard. As soon as that shit closed, evictions. I'm like, thankfully we always paid rent. All of our, I feel like a Hispanic, almost everybody paid the rent because it's like we're not used to like every bill comes last, but the very first bills that you always pay is your rent. Like the roof over your head is a must. And I think
that's another thing too. There's a difference between like a lot of like you when you're born here and you're like you've been here all your life or whatever, like you get like a little privilege, right? So it's like when you're not from here, you're like, damn, I can't get kicked out because what am I gonna do?
And you don't take anything for granted. And then everybody who's here is like, oh, how can I cheat the system? Like, oh, like everybody else is doing it, so why not us? It's like I just don't think we were raised that way, with that. With
that mentality.
That mentality of like fucking somebody over, like it's just like all about, you don't care who it is that you're taking advantage of, and it's like, oh well, everybody else does it, like screw the other person on the end of it that you're taking advantage of, right? Like I've never seen you that way. My parents definitely didn't teach me that way. And I think they'd be super mad at me and would call me out, and that's super disrespectful because they'll be like, that's not the way we raised you to be, and that's right. I think we were taught like, if $1 we have, this $1 we spend, right? You don't get stuff that you can't afford. You don't do things with that bad ill intent of like, oh no, I'm gonna get this free off this person, like I'm gonna screw him over,
right, that's right.
I don't think anything ever ends well that way. But going back to like the college aspect, I was like, I think it was real easy for us, when we chose our degree and everything, especially you and me, is how we tackled everything, where to me college was easier having you side by side because we were in every class together, like for the most part, we try to schedule our schedules, and it was a huge advantage in college, right? Because we'd split the homework, right? Or we'd do the homework together. It was a hack. We found out it was a hack. Remember, we also had then we got close with some other friends, right? Like Noe, right? He was the third one, and then our transfer student friend, his name was Ahmed, right? Towards the end of it, and then we showed him like how the hack worked, and it was easier. It's like we'd literally divide the homeworks that if we all had the same class, like we split the homeworks, right? And then like we just change them around a little bit, but we would split all those assignments and tests, and it was easier. We'd take a test, right? And they'd give you the answers at the end. And then we take the hit, and then the other person would get like an automatic 100, and we take like definitely basically you was risking one one bad score every 2, 3, or 4 tests, right? Depending on how many of us it was. Remember towards the end it was so bad, like because it was really easy, like our little program that we literally had like almost the whole class in on it. So they all wanted to be a part of it, and I was like, dude, just form your own circle. Like we're gonna get in trouble sooner or later.
I remember that.
And I just think college was easier, at least. For us, because of that, right?
I mean, I don't recommend it to just anybody do that.
No, right. Right. I mean, we did it in the sense of, our degree is, we were learning on the field, right? So it really wasn't like, we were just there basically wasting time because like we already knew what we were doing. We needed the degree, right? Because it's like we didn't know, we didn't care how we were going to use it. Right. We just knew that this degree didn't define us, the GPA, none of that, because we were already in real time working already in construction, right? Things outside, right? You were already working with your father, your company, and it really wasn't like we didn't really need to learn it. Like we were always like, I think, ahead of the curve, even in college, because construction, you learn hands on. I remember how Van Hook would always use us as an example. He would use us as an example, and he'd always be like, oh, he already does this, he does that, and I'm like, dude, like stop using me as an example, like I do it, it's like, but it's like, everyone else can be doing the same thing, but it's like, why aren't they? It's like, I'd rather have not a 4.0 GPA in the position I was in, because I was like, all day, every day, I'm coming out with experience.
Yeah.
We know English and Spanish.
Right.
And I was like, dude, like, you know, we're young. And I was like, you know, we didn't have any debts or anything. So we were more in like a free for all. Like, you know, I think college to me was more like super easy because I didn't care. I was like, dude, like, I don't care if I barely slide by. I was like, I already got people lined up waiting for me, like, you know, to go work and stuff. It's like, you know, because the GPA doesn't define you. It's more of like, you know, we just needed the diploma. So, you know, in the event, you know, they can't hassle you and pay. Or like, you know, some people, they won't even let you sit at the table because, you know, that's their requisite, right? It's like you could be super experienced, but, you know, they're going to lock your pay down because they're like, oh, go get that degree, right? And like in your case, you know, like you know, I think in a way it's like you didn't really even use the degree, right? Like, because you know, I finished school and I did go be a builder, but you know, you already had your whole company going on, right? So it's like, but I think you got it because in the event of, that's always like a plan B, right? And it's an awesome plan B to have because like you don't need it, right? If you're making more money and you're doing much better that way, then
like one of the factors was like, you know, like because I guess your parents always tell you like, hey, get a diploma, you know, go to school, go to college, you know,
make them proud.
So it was just kind of like being like a first generation, you know, like all right, let me get to college, you know, you know,
it's almost like for them in a way, right?
Yeah, it's kind of for them in a way, you know. I mean, it's for yourself too. It helps you out, but like I was there too. Like I was kind of networking, you know, and I was like working full time, but I was kind of networking as much as I could, you know. So like kind of like how me and you, we kind of kept in touch, and like you know, you've worked with a couple different companies, so you know, we've been able to come in and work, you know.
Every chance I get, you know, it's like you know, I move somewhere else, or you know, right now I'm working for someone else right on the side, and it's versing that thing of hardscape, landscape, anything, stormwater. You know? I'm like, hey, I got somebody, you know. It's like I don't think about anybody else because you know we grew up since kids, and it's like as long as you can do it with, you know, you're not busy, and you know we can stay within budget. You know, then you know that's always been like hardscape or your company, what everything you do is you know, I always let me call you guys first.
Right. So it's just like so it's kind of networking. I learned a little bit of everything, you know, because you learn like real estate, you learn financing, you know.
The classes were useful, right? Because it's like they went in depth a little bit, like scheduling, architecture was cool to like know how to do it, you know. It's like the
blueprints and stuff like that, you know. Like I mean, you know how to read blueprints, but like you want to know the technical, you know, like
the scaling, the you know, the legends of how it creates.
Learn AutoCAD, you know.
You're right, AutoCAD, Revit, right? Revit's like a cheat code to AutoCAD, all that. Understanding contracts, remember contracts and law, because in this thing, everything's contracts. You know, you having a company, right? But you're gonna do work. You want to make sure, you know, that you detail everything you're going to do, because otherwise they may want extra things done and want to pay you the same money, or may want to pay you less because you know you didn't write everything down and made them sign. So it's like contracts is a huge thing in this field, right? You can quickly go under because you know you just, you know, or I think it's a tougher situation when you just buy word of mouth or text message, because they can always delete them, change them, right? Like change, now there's apps where they can change the phone number and you know, manipulate the text and stuff like that, where you know that you just, you know, you have a contract, you both had, sign, you know, that's what the government or like lawsuits or lawyers care about, right? Because the contract, you have the same copy, I have the same copy, right. This is what we had, right? And here's the date that it was signed. So any problems, like, you know, it's all there. So I mean so school for me was just, you know, kind of that, you know. I got out. I had a couple job offers too, you know. Like there's like just people that we used to do like GCs that we worked for too. They were like trying to get me to go work for them, you know. So like so I had to make a decision, you know. I was like, I mean, am I gonna go work for a company or like, you know, just take what we've already kind of built? Because I was working. Like when I was in high school, I was working full time, you know, kind of helping my dad because my dad had the language barrier. So I was gonna help my dad like just with the company to kind of build the client base, you know. So that's when we got into construction. The construction started booming. So it just all started like happening, you know, kind of at the right time, you know. So it's just like, so when I graduated school, I had to make a decision, you know, pretty quick. I was like, am I gonna stay here and do this? And I was like, it was a no-brainer, you know. I was like, all right, I'm gonna just do this, you know. And then that's when we kind of became a partnership, you know, me and my dad. So we got a partnership, and then it all worked out. You know? And can you tell us a little bit about your company? Like, you know, what is it that, you know, you guys do, or, you know, how are you guys established today, right?
So the company is Tree of Hope LLC, and we started the LLC, I guess 2021, 2021, something like that. We started just a partnership, you know? And then we started doing, so we used to do landscaping, like lawn mowing, stuff like that, just mowing lawns. And then it was paying the bills, you know, but it was like, it was not it, you know. It was like not. You
weren't like cashing out, you know. Like you felt like, you know, there was more aspects within that field that like you could better use your resources or funds towards, right?
Right. So I was like, And then again, you know, just like learning